You've made your point. David, you've just come back from Srinagar. Tell us, Dr. Singhvi called it a temporary aberration. Is it just a temporary aberration?
The last point that he made is exactly the problem, at least one of the problems. The state and the political institutions of the state, including the parties in power, tend to see things as perfectly fine and normal, as he said a month ago, because there are no bomb blasts, because there are no gunfires, because there is no...
absence of violence doesn't mean it's peace.
Absolutely right. And for them, that is what it means.
So what is the problem then?
They wake up when people come onto the streets and light a fire and express their anger.
So what is the problem in
anger,
Kashmir?
And the anger is to do with things that happened over the last few months. And perhaps, in fact, over the last 20 years, in fact, since 47, to a large extent. A lot of the anger has to do with what happened in Machil a couple of months ago, at a time when Dr. Singhvi says that there was absolutely perfect governance. When 3 boys were picked up, lured to an army camp with the promise of jobs, and were shot. And when their bodies were exhumed a month later, it was discovered that they were ordinary boys from impoverished families who had nothing to do with militancy.
You want to respond to that, Dr. Singhvi? The fact is, this has been not a single event of failure. This has been consistent failure over the last few months, whether it's human rights violations, whether it's abuses by the security forces. And the point that David was making, that about the humane approach of the Indian security forces, not quite the case in Kashmir Valley. Let's accept it.
May I make one more point?
Yeah, let him respond and I'll come back to you. Yeah, Dr. Singhvi.
Can I respond?
Yeah, Dr. Singhvi.
I must respond because the preceding speaker has just made a caricature of what I've just submitted. Either he has not heard it or he has deliberately made a caricature of what I've said and distorted it completely. On the contrary, what I've said is that it is these events which are happening for the last 2 months. I didn't mean 1 month in exact 30-day sense. In the last few months or few weeks, which are extremely sad and bad, and aberration is bad. But I totally disagree that you must therefore go back to assuming that 40 years of accumulated anger, 10 years of accumulated anger and 5 years of anger are to be, yes, those are problems, but those are structural problems. Those are not issues which have led to this sudden eruption.
No, what he's saying is this is not something that has just suddenly happened overnight. This has been flaring for a very long time. The signs were there. Both the state administration and the centre missed those signs. That's the point David is making.
No, there was no missing of signs for the simple reason that in a particular action, this is the whole problem. My friend, there is generalizing things. In a particular action, let me assume that there was a police excess. You have to address that action by taking disciplinary action against the police, the CRPF, etc., and the central government and the state government are on the same page on that. But to say
whether it was in Machil, whether it was in Shopia, whether it was in Sopore, time and time again, that was not that exact thing you're referring to was not done, Dr. Singhvi. That is why you're seeing this kind of flare up right now. Whether it's in Shopia, in Sopore, in Machil, that was not done.
Nobody supported directly or indirectly, at least at the official level, either Machil or Sopore or Shopia. But yes, there are excesses in this process, and it is very regrettable. I think we all condemn it strongly. But don't generalize it to a malaise which is allowed to fester and encourage it kind of thing.
I want to go across to Mr. Nizamuddin Bhatt. He's from the PDP, and one of the points that has been consistently made by Omar Abdullah's administration in Srinagar and sometimes here at the centre is that as well is that interests inimical to India, whether it's separatist elements, whether it's elements from across the border, are the ones who are inciting this violence. This has nothing to do with the ordinary sentiment of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Is that necessarily true, sir? Mr. Bhatt.
You see, let me tell you, Kashmiris don't suffer from split personality. They are not hysteric too. It has been a problem all along. And it has been acknowledged by all the governments, all dispensations. But there has not been a proper treatment to the problem. There were spells when there was a hope. For last 1.5 years, that hope has turned into dismay. And it has been again the revival of that kind of a sentiment which we call alienation. There has been an impression from day one that the government that's in place is lacking wisdom, a familiarity with the Kashmir problem too, as also familiarity with their own people. It was complete lack of direction. There have been no aberrations. There have been incidents after incidents which were alarming for any responsive government.